My name is Wang Shui-Bo. I was born in 1960. Everyone in my generation did a drawing of the sunrise over Tiananmen Square. Tiananmen Square was the symbol of the new China. The sunflowers were us, the new generation of communists. And the red sun was our great leader, Chairman Mao. Inspired by the success of the Russian Revolution in 1917, the Chinese Communist Party was founded by Mao Zedong and his comrades. My grandfather was born shortly after Mao and joined the communist forces in the 1920s. They wanted to expel the imperialists, seize power from the wealthy, and give the people a better life. 4 years after the end of World War II, the communists finally overthrew the nationalist government, and Mao Zedong proclaimed the birth of the new China in Tiananmen Square. He promised a society based upon equality and cooperation. My grandfather became a high-ranking official in the new China and divorced my grandmother, who was his wife, from an arranged marriage. She had the traditional bound fate. He married a communist comrade whose fate were not bound. My mother was a government official. We believed she would be the most fortunate in all the family because she has a beauty mole on her chin, just like Chairman Mao. My father was a water conservation engineer. He has a Russian name, Nov. My grandfather gave it to him in honor of the Russian Revolution. I was born on September 11th, 1960. I was the fourth child in the family. 1960 was a year of famine in China. Chairman Mao's Great Leap Forward movement, which would make China a leading industrial power, had ended painfully. The situation was made worse by the economic embargo of the USA and many of its allies. Relations with the Soviet Union had taken a turn for the worse, and all Russian aid programs to China had been suspended. China was isolated by the Cold War. But 4 years later, China's economy was improving, and I had a brother. He weighed 12 pounds and looked like a happy little Buddha. At that time, China did not practice family planning. Chairman Mao said, "More people, more help." I painted this scene from childhood memory. It is my hometown, Jinan, an ancient city in eastern China. It was a city of lotus flowers and willow trees. I always loved to draw, and my earliest inspirations came from a children's library. In 1966, Chairman Mao launched the Great Cultural Revolution, and all students became members of his Red Guard. They closed down that library. Mao wanted to destroy the old culture and build a new society. Instead, we all read Chairman Mao's Red Book. He was infallible. Our great leader spoke to millions of his Red Guard in Tiananmen Square.
You young people are like the sun at 8 or 9 in the morning. Our hope is placed in you. The world belongs to you. China's future belongs to you.
The headmaster of our local high school was denounced by his daughter and accused of having capitalist values by the Red Guard. His suicide was an admission of guilt. He was bad and deserved no sympathy. He was the first dead person I had seen. I was 8 years old.
A revolution is not a dinner party, or writing an essay, or painting a picture, or doing embroidery. It cannot be so refined, so leisurely and gentle. A revolution is an insurrection, an act by which one class overthrows another.
One day, when I was 9, I was going home from school with friends. We found a paper box in a cornfield. In it was the body of a dead baby. We immediately knew that the dead baby was an enemy of the people because he had not died in hospital. We stoned the tiny dead body. There is a Catholic church in Jinan. I was terrified by the shape of the building, even if it was now a textile factory. I was told that in the old days, missionaries did experiments on Chinese orphans. The children's spirit still lived in the church. For me, the West represented darkness. As a result of the two opium wars between 1840 and 1860, Britain and her allies had forced China to import opium in exchange for tea and silk. In 1900, there was a popular revolt against the aggressors. 8 nations marched into Tiananmen Square and burned the empire's palace. There was just one piece of foreign literature in my school textbook, The Little MatchGirl by Hans Christian Andersen. I cried when I read the story and felt sorry for her and other poor children in the West. I always looked at the newspaper on New Year's Day. There would always be an article with photographs from New York reporting that many homeless children were frozen to death on Christmas Eve. I was lucky to live in New China. We had free schooling and 3 meals a day, and warm clothing. Without our great leader Chairman Mao and the Communist Party, we would not have such a good life.
毛主席万岁！共产 产党万岁！
We lived in this Soviet-designed apartment building with underground tunnels and bomb shelters. My father made me a wooden spear. Every Red Guard had one, and each day during the Vietnam War, we practiced martial arts. We called the Vietnamese comrades and brothers. I did this drawing in 1969. The Vietnamese people will be the winner, the US will be the loser. During the same period, all universities and colleges were closed. Students would be educated by working with the people. My oldest sister became a dancer in the army propaganda troupe. My second sister a factory worker, and my third a peasant. And me, I dreamed of becoming a member of the People's Liberation Army. I loved the uniform and wanted to follow the example of Canadian doctor Norman Bethune, who died in 1939, saving Chinese lives during the fight against the Japanese, who had invaded China in 1937. In the next 8 years, 20 million Chinese were killed, including members of my family. Chairman Mao wrote an article to commemorate Dr. Bethune.
We must all learn the spirit of absolute selflessness from him. With this spirit, everyone can be useful to the people.
I wanted to become an internationalist and fight for the freedom of those children who suffered under capitalism. Half of each school year was devoted to military training and working in factories and farms. We were encouraged to do one good deed per day. At home, we had a bowl of goldfish. My parents had to give them away. Keeping pets was bourgeois. There were tapes stuck on our window panes to protect us against shattered glass if either the Russians or the Americans attacked. But we were not afraid. We also had the atomic bomb. Chairman Mao ordered the nation to prepare for war when Chinese and Russian troops clashed along our common border. One day, my father told me that the Red Guard suspected him of being a Russian spy because he had a Russian name. He became hysterical. He tried to hang himself. I clung to his leg, crying and begging him to stop. I saved his life. Once, while drawing on walls with my brother, I noticed an X scratched over our great leader Chairman Mao's name. It must have been done by a class enemy. We reported the counter-revolutionary crime to the People's Committee. To my surprise, we were the main suspects and told to confess. We would be afraid if we said who was the ringleader. I was confused and terrified, but did not break down. My love and loyalty to our great leader gave me courage. My father and mother were close to me, but Chairman Mao was the closest. I was so envious of those two children. My biggest dream was to see Chairman Mao with my own eyes in Tiananmen Square September 9th, 1976. Our great leader Chairman Mao died. I had believed him immortal. Chairman Mao is the right sun in our heart, which will never set. 2 days later, it was my 16th birthday. It was a long time before I again celebrated my birthday. 3 months after, I became a soldier in the People's Liberation Army. I am 17 and at last standing on Tiananmen Square. This is Tiananmen, the gate of heavenly peace. The huge square can hold 1.5 million people. It is the heart of our nation. I would also finally be able to see Chairman Mao with my own eyes. But what I would see would not be the Chairman Mao of films and posters. Handsome, radiant, and full of vigor. I was a member of the propaganda art troops. We were male and female, but love affairs were strictly prohibited. We performed modern revolutionary operas praising communism. I was a stage designer and a propaganda poster artist. It is 4 years after the Vietnam War, and I am 19. Vietnam had invaded Cambodia. The Chinese army is trying to rescue the Khmer Rouge of Pol Pot, and is now fighting against its former comrades and brothers, the Vietnamese army. I drew this poster in honor of our many young casualties. This border war exposed our shortcomings. So I did this other propaganda poster for the war of tomorrow. On February 9th, 1980, I became a member of the Chinese Communist Party. In my diary, I wrote, I am determined to be in the front line of the fight to protect and build our motherland. I will never bring disgrace to the party. A year later, at 21, my army service ended, and I returned home. But times were changing. It is 1981. Under our new leader Deng Xiaoping, China was no longer isolated and had opened her borders to the West. I left behind the puritanism of my army life and drew my first piece of romantic art, an illustrated book based upon the fairy tale Rapunzel. My inspiration was the English artist Aubrey Beardsley. I became a student at the Central Academy of Fine Arts in the heart of Beijing, a few minutes walk from Tiananmen Square. Mao had been dead 5 years. His statue was now in a dusty corner. The European Renaissance masters were our new icons. Day and night, we listened to Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. Rousseau's Confessions was my favorite book. I remember the first time I saw a nude model in drawing class. I blushed and my heart beat rapidly. I drew and dreamed of being a great artist. My major was illustration. I went to a village and drew a book on peasant life, in keeping with the tradition that art should serve the people. In 1983, I received the Best Student Award from the city of Beijing and illustrated a book about young soldiers facing life and death during the Long March. 1934, 300,000 communists escaped nationalist government blockade and walked 8,000 miles to the north. I still had my communist values, but in reality, most young Chinese were tired of communist ideology. My short first love ended because she believed me too idealistic. The young were more inspired by names like Nietzsche and Sartre, and rock and roll and sex. I found myself caught between Marx and Coca-Cola. My graduate thesis, The Hungry Child, was about the dreams of a starving child in old China, but stylistically was influenced by Western surrealism. In 1985, I graduated and was hired to teach at art school. In this year, the General Secretary of the Communist Party, Hu Yaobang, launched a campaign to improve the nation's educational standards. Several thousand graduates went to rural areas to train local school teachers. During the one-year mission, I witnessed widespread poverty and illiteracy. For the first time, I asked myself why. After more than 30 years of socialism, was China so far behind the Western capitalist countries? In 1987, Hu was dismissed as General Secretary, blamed for encouraging bourgeois liberalization. I was discouraged and decided never to go into politics. Instead, I took a trip to the southwest border region, where I met followers of Buddha. Their peaceful life in harmony with nature impressed me. In 1988, I fell in love with Yu, a French literature student. She brought me serenity, and my work flourished. But this sweet life was interrupted by the death of Hu Yaobang on April 15th, 1989. Thousands of students gathered in Tiananmen Square to commemorate Hu and to demand democratic reforms, freedom of speech, and the end of corruption. But on May 20, 1989, martial law was imposed. We were shocked. My grandfather had died in 1977, an honored member of the party. The Communist Party was no longer the party of my grandfather's generation. The next day, I resigned from the party, although I still kept my communist ideals. The goddess of democracy, made by students from the art school, was inspired by the Statue of Liberty. Obviously, we had forgotten the Vietnam War and the story of the Little MatchGirl, and no longer believed there were any homeless children in Manhattan. For us, America represented democracy and prosperity, although none of us had ever been to America. June 4th, 1989. The darkest day of my life. I could not believe that my former comrades were shooting their own people. Not the enemy, but the future of our nation. There was a powerful thunderstorm right after the massacre. I thought it was Chairman Mao's spirit crying bitterly. The blood was washed away by the rain, but the smell of the blood will always be in Tiananmen Square. Beijing was like an occupied city for the next few months. We lived with fear, anger, sadness, confusion, nightmares. October 15th, 1989. 2 weeks after Yu and I got married, I left China for North America, where I hoped there would be no violence, no hatred, and of course no homeless. I was very sad and hoped that one day I could return home to see my loved ones and to watch a sunrise over Tiananmen Square.